Hi, welcome to today's CAD lesson. In today's exercise, we would create this simple connected pipe model you see in front of you. This is one for the beginners. It is a very simple exercise where we learn how to use our default planes. Finally, we would also create the ribs you see here. Now let's see how we want to tackle this model. We would first of all extrude this pipe. Then we would offset a plane where we would create a sketch so we can extrude this feature. We would then mirror it on the opposite side. Finally, we would create this feature that sits on top of the base model, and then we would create our ribs. Let's go ahead and begin with today's exercise. If you would have any comments, questions, concerns, or contributions, you can drop them down in the comment section below. I would respond to them as soon as possible. I have my software opened. Before we even begin, let me also mention that I have a beginner playlist on this channel. There you would find tutorials where I break down steps for creating different models. Just check it out. Alright, so let's go ahead and get our worksheet to begin with today's exercise. To do that, you can type Ctrl+N or click on New App here. That opens up this box. Here we have templates for creating parts, for assemblies, for creating drawing files, and then also for presentations. But we want to focus on the parts because what we are creating today is more like a part. We are also going to be working in millimeters. For that reason, we would select the standard IPT template. IPT is Inventor part template. Just click on that and create. Now here we can begin to create our model. Most often what you do is to create a 2D sketch and then you would extrude to get the feature you want. Before you create a 2D sketch, you have to pick a plane. So let's pick the 2D sketch command first up here. And now we are faced with 3 planes. Depending on how you want the extrusion to go, you pick a plane accordingly. Here we want our extrusion to go this way. And so for that reason, we can create our sketch on the XY plane so that when we extrude, it goes in this direction. Now let me pick that. Sketch is going to be a circle. I'll pick the circle command up here. Just bring it to the origin. You know you are there when it turns green. Just click and then you drag your mouse. Here you can specify the dimension of this straight away using the dynamic input box. And so I'll just type that in there as 100. You can press enter. The work is off focus. To get it in focus, you can double click your scroll mouse button or even use your scroll mouse button to zoom in and out. Now this is it for our first sketch. We want to create the second sketch, which is also going to be a circle, and we want that to share in the origin of the first one. And so I'm going to bring the cursor here to the middle again. That is the origin. Once it turns green, I can click and drag and click again to place. This time we want to use the dimension command to specify the dimension of the circle. So just click on the circle and drag. You can click again and now you can type the dimension in here, which is going to be 90, and you check that. Now before you extrude, you have to finish your sketch. And so I'll click on that command up here that says finish. You can double click your scroll mouse button. Now we want to extrude. You can extrude by clicking on the extrude command up here or type E on your keyboard to extrude. That opens up this. Now let's go through these together. The first option is to select the profile we want to extrude. If there was just one closed profile, Autodesk Inventor will select that automatically. But since we have a number of profiles, so we have this, there can be that, and also this, we would have to select manually. This is the profile we want to extrude, and so I'll just bring my cursor there and click. Now the plane we want to extrude from has been detected. That was the plane we selected. For the behavior, we have a number of options here. If you want to extrude in the default direction, just look at the arrow. That extrusion will go this way. If you want to reverse it also, you can use the flipped option. But this time we want to extrude symmetric so that the sketch we created sits right in the middle of our extrusion. For that reason, I'll click on this. And then I have to specify the distance of the extrusion here. So I'll just select whatever I have in there and change it to 200. I see a preview of it. It is exactly what I want. You can change the body name if you want. We don't need to apply a taper. The preview is fine for me, and so we can OK. Over here in the model browser, we get a list of features we create. Now let's say we want to go back into the sketch of this extrusion we've done and even change some dimensions. We can do that easily. You just click on the plus sign next to the extrusion. You would find the sketch there. You can click on it, right click, and choose the command that says edit sketch. Over here, you can double click on any dimension you want to change and change that from here. Once you are done, you can check and finish. That correction would be made. Let's say we want to also edit the extrusion. You can click on it, right click, choose the option that says edit feature. And let's say we want to change the distance of extrusion to 300. We can do that from here. So just type that. We'll notice that that change has been made. You can now OK. As easy as that. Now let's go ahead to create the next feature, which is going to be the pipe that sits on this face. So let's pick the 2D sketch command because we want to create the 2D sketch first. Once we pick that, we have to pick a plane to create the sketch on. We want to extrude this way so that it joins to this first extrusion. For that reason, let's open up the default planes, even turn on the visibility of these planes. If you want to see them, just click, you can right click and choose the option that says visibility. We'll do same for the XZ plane and same for the XY plane. Great. Now we want to extrude this way, which means we have to work on a plane that is parallel to this particular plane, which is the YZ plane. Now to offset a plane to that, you can drop down the plane option and pick the one that says offset and click the plane you want to offset from, which in our case is going to be this plane. You can use this arrow to drag further, but we can also specify the distance of that offset in here. We want to offset that to a distance of 150, and so I can type that and check. Now I will select this plane and create a sketch on it. Let's pick the circle command. We want to draw a circle. OK. You can right click and then OK. Instead of dimensioning this circle, we can define it by some geometries. Now let's see how we will do that. We can use this command that says project geometry. So we can project this line and that line that formed part of the previous extrusion we did. We want that to be part of this current sketch we are making, and so they have been projected onto this plane. What I want to do now is to use a constraint, the one that says tangent, to say that make this circle tangential to this line. There we have it. Our circle is fully constrained. It says that down here, which means our circle is constrained. We are unable to move it anywhere. That is exactly what we want, and so we want to finish this sketch, and now we can extrude. So the extrude command, the feature has been selected since there is just one closed profile, but we have to specify the direction of extrusion. This way isn't what we want. We want to flip that around, and so you can pick this option. But we also have to specify the length of this extrusion. We can define that by these three options here. We have one that says to next. Let's pick that, and it would extrude up until the next feature is sees, which is exactly what we want. Now we can OK. Next, we want to create the hole in the middle of this extrusion we did. We can do that by picking the 2D sketch command because we want to create a 2D sketch, and then we would extrude cut that. We can pick this plane to sketch on. We can also pick this face. Since this plane is sitting right on top of this face, we can pick any of them. Let me pick this face. What I want to do now is to use the project geometry command again to project the circle and use this command that says offset, and so I'll click on that and pick this circle. You drag to say that offset this second circle to a distance of 5 millimeters from the first one, and you can press enter. That constrains that circle. It says that down here. Now we can finish the sketch and extrude. The extrude command, the feature we want to extrude is going to be, I selected the wrong one, and so I would cancel. Let me pick the extrude command again. Let's select this circle. Great. Now the boolean or the output is going to be this one that says cut, because I want to remove material until we are cutting. Now, how far do I want to cut this? Let me define that with a distance. And so I can use the one that says 2 and turn this around. You turn around by holding the shift and the scroll mouse button together and you turn. So the two of them, and you can turn. I want to define that with 2 this face, and so I want to cut up until this face. The preview is exactly what I want, and so I can OK. We have a cut in there. Let me get the isometric view. You do that by clicking on the home button here. You can also look this way. Now you can double click the scroll mouse button or even use the home button up here so you can get your work in focus. Next, we want to create the mirrored copy of this feature on the opposite side. We can use the mirror command for that. It is here under the pattern group. It says mirror. I will select that. Let's go through these together. The first option we would pick is the mirror individual features. That is selected. And the feature we want to mirror is going to be the extrusion tool we did. We hold down the control key and select the extrusion 3. This is the extrude joint and this is the cut we made inside the joint. The plane we want this feature to go across, we can use this plane. Let's click on that and we get a preview, which is exactly what we want, and so we can OK. Let's turn this around so we see what we've done. Amazing. Let me get the isometric view. We want to next create the feature that sits on top of this model. We would have to offset a plane also. Let's drop down the plane options, pick the offset from plane. This time, because we want to extrude downwards, we would create our sketch on the top plane. I will select that and drag. That is to a distance of 150. I'll type that in here and enter. Next, I will select this plane and create my sketch on there. Let's pick the circle command. That is going to be our first profile. Bring that to the origin. Just click and drag. This much is fine. I will dimension this as 100 and enter. Let's finish this and we can extrude that. So the extrude command, the profile has been selected, but the direction is wrong, and so we'll flip it around. And we want to define the distance with one of these options. We can choose the one that says to next. Let's now OK. Now on this face or on this plane, either ways is fine. Let's select this face and create a sketch on it. We would project just like we did before this geometry. Let's offset now to a distance of 5. We can enter. Let's finish this and extrude cut that profile. Let me select the profile. The output is going to be a cut, and I want to define the cut with the option that says 2. Now let me turn this around and pick this face, which is where I want to extrude cut to. The preview is fine. Let's OK and get the isometric view. The feature we want to create next is going to be the rib. To rib, we need a line. Let's draw the line first. Let's pick the 2D sketch command and create this line on the XY plane. I would want to project this and that line. Now I can pick the line command. Let me draw my line here. You can right click and then OK. But I want to place these points on this line. And so I'll choose the one that says coincident constraint up here. To say that put this point right on this line. Also put this point on this line. Now we can dimension the distance between this point here and that point is 60. Also between this point and that, I'll click. Because I still want 60, I can just click on this one here and check, so that in the future, if I even change this dimension, it would automatically affect this. Great. Now I can go ahead and finish my sketch. Let me close this for now and finish. Let's pick the rib command here. It is under the create group. Let's go through these details together. I want the rib to be the second option, which is parallel to the sketch plane. Let me select the profile I want to rib, which is this one. and I want the direction to be the direction 1, which will be towards the model we are creating. Now I want to change the thickness of this extrusion to 5. That looks fine. The preview is okay. Let's hit OK. I also want multiples of this rib I just created around this circular face. For that, I'm going to use the circular pattern command. Let's go through the details together. We will pick the first option that says pattern individual features. The feature we want to pattern is going to be the rib. I can click on that from here and pick the rotational axis, which is the axis I want it to go around, which can be this. But I see the placement, which is the count as 6. I don't want 6, I want 4, and so I'll type 4. And this 360 is to say that equally space the 4 ribbed features around a 360-degree angle. The feature is exactly what I want, and so I would OK. We would also want to create another rib feature in between these faces on this plane. Now let's select the plane and create the sketch. Same procedure. Let's first of all project some lines, which will be this line and that line. Let me pick the line command and connect from this line to that. I will dimension the distance between this point and that point. This time let's do 40 and enter. Also between this point and that point is 40. I'll click on this and check that. Let me finish this and use the rib command again. And so rib, let's pick the option we picked, parallel to sketch plane. The profile is going to be this one. Let's use the direction 2. The thickness is 5, which is fine. We see the preview, that is okay. And so I would OK. I want to create circular patterns of that as well. Let me pick the circular pattern command and pick that feature, which is going to be this. The rotational axis, it should go around. I can use this again. There are 6 occurrences, but I want just 4, and so I'll type that in here. Let me turn this around. The preview looks fine. Now I can OK and get the isometric view. Our model is ready. We can now take off these planes. We do that by selecting them from the model browser. So just click, hold down Control, and we will select all of the planes. You right click and then turn off visibility. Now let's change the appearance, and so I'll drop this down. You can choose any color you want from the drop down list. I will pick the blue wall paint glossy. We can also do a basic rendering. So let's go into our view and we can add some shadows. We can add a reflection. You can even add a ground plane if you want. To get a clear picture of how this looks internally, we can also use this option here under the view tab that says half section view and pick the face we want to half from. We can use this face, and with this arrow you can just click and drag slowly. Okay, you can take that back up and close this once you are satisfied. You can even pick from this face also and drag, and then you take back once you are done. You can close this. Okay, that is it for this tutorial. This is a beginner friendly one. I hope you had fun recreating this. If you did, give this video a thumbs up and consider subscribing to my channel if you are yet to do that. If you have any comments, questions, concerns, or contributions, you can drop them down in the comment section below. I would respond to them as soon as possible. Don't forget to share this with your card friends and also save this. I'll see you soon in the next tutorial. Bye.